Do it.
Yo, the lies so that you never make it. Hopeless, so it seems. Eyes closed, candles open wide to embrace your dreams. Sometimes you gotta take a loss just to get the win. Like lots of sims popping it like oxygen when boxes wet. Focus on the mental, never lose like smooth instrumental. Better choose on the move in a pinto. Choose what I get to, never lose move on the move, but it's simple. Never give up if we want it and make it. We just keep winning, we conquering daily. Envision that pay me is never the
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Divots and Pivots. This on this Tuesday night, as always, brought to you by Acorn Hills, acornhillsco.com. Use TBFY15 when you check out with your order. Discount code to get you 15% off. And then that stands for This Bud's for you, for yours truly over here, Mr. Bud Copeland, coming in on the final night of the regular season of the TGL. I hear you pouring yourself, I'm assuming, a soda water over there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Whoa, wow, okay. Hey, hi, hot mic.
You got your volume up?
I guess so. This is none other than, okay, my wife thinks it's disgusting, and it reminds me of childhood, but cranberry or raspberry flavored ginger ale. It reminds me of like Christmas time as a child. I'm a big ginger ale guy ever since I gave up the drink for the smoke. Mm-hmm. And so every once in a while, when it's a special occasion, I like to pop open a bottle of the cran or the raz and toast myself, because I mean, brother, morale is super high. And I want to start with what you just said. We're in the middle of the final day of the TGL. Nick Dunlap is on my screen right now. God knows what the delay is between our service providers and the.
Oh, that's what I'm watching too. We're lined up.
And whatever Russian interference is being thrown into our web space. So what's happening, gentlemen?
Trying to hide us from the TGL.
And Nick Dunlap. So let's just go right into TGL. I saw Riggsy from Barstool. Shout out Barstool again. I love those guys. I don't know them personally. I just think that, again, what they've done in the space and kind of opened everybody's eyes to the fact that golf is a communal sport. It's for the people, by the people. Saturdays are for the boys, all that kind of garbage. It was either him or the former Barstool guy, Dan Rappaport, talking about they were not a fan. Oh, I think it was Riggsy and them. They were kind of shitting on the Tony Finau one-day contract. And I'll be, in fairness, I didn't listen to all hour and a half, 3 hours, or whatever their conversation was. I got the social media clips that they were uploading, which to me says this is kind of the point you want to put out there, representative of your show.
Right, I would think so.
And they were kind of upset about just kind of the blasé nature of just having any old, superstar come in for a one day. And first thing I'm thinking to myself is, we're in the beta season, right? Mm-hmm. We're beta testing this thing. And I think it's a success. You think about the number of celebrities that have bought into these teams, whether they're partners in name or financially, or they're trying to buy in equity. I think like Serena Williams is part owner of the LA team. Yep. Tiger's obviously got his buddies invested up here in Boston. We've got the kid from One Direction. One of them. I don't know.
Niall. Is it Liam or not Niall? You're right, Niall.
Niall or Liam, whatever. We got one of the One Direction guys. We got Noah Kahan. So it's kind of cool to see how this thing is going to stick around. We're going to see more of it.
100%.
Naturally, we got Tiger closing it out. We see the goatee coming out, which means, look out. The Masters are around the corner. The intern's going to get fired. You hear that? Crying.
Oh, I do.
You probably deserve it. It's called karma. But we are blessed to be living in the moment right now that we're in. Tom Kim's about to hold out. But to see Nick Dunlap in there in this kind of the final day, they were shitting over the one day contracts. And my thought is, what are you going to do? It's the first year. Now, the point they were making moving forward. The point they were making moving forward is we need a little more stability. And I agree. Get a stable of signed players, signed free agents, dare I say, taking a live term, although they weren't the first people to use the term free agent. And I think we're going to see that. I think what we might see is Tony Finau, Nick Dunlap, some of these guys being like, we'll be roster players, free agents, so to speak. It's going to evolve more. And so we are in a phenomenal spot to see what the second wave of golf or the future of golf is going to look like. Because starting next week, we're really going to kind of forget about all this because we got the players
We have some real tournaments.
Yeah, and then it just kind of comes at you like an avalanche, and we're going to be in Bethpage before you know it. So starting off with a little TGL, I really liked seeing this Nick Dunlap. I've been a big Nick Dunlap fan ever since I saw him, win the U.S. Junior, and then he comes back and wins the U.S. Amateur, being the only other person besides Tiger to do it. Bobby Jones didn't even do it because there was no U.S. Junior back then.
Yeah, and then Rookie of the Year last year as well.
Right, wins as an amateur, does that for the first time since Phil Mickelson. And I think with all the attention on Ludwig and,
and rightfully so, yeah.
Right, and Rory's story and all that kind of stuff, he's the sneaky guy to keep an eye out on, because it's not just in his kind of credentials, it's in his results that he shows up, he wins. He unfortunately is a Bama guy, but, whatever, I can make peace with that because he's good for the sport. So TGL, great space. I think the finale kind of is fun to watch. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's going on with the playoffs? I'm assuming you did your homework or you understand what's going on in the playoffs, and you can fill me in, because I'll be honest with you. Really, all I know, all I've been kind of keeping up with, full transparency, is we suck as a.
They had a great showing last night too. They won a bunch of holes. They won, I think, 6 holes. They just unfortunately, and it was like 4-3 through 4 holes because the hammers and the hammers were actually being won too. So that was a fantastic back and forth match last night. But unfortunately, they once again lose 10-6. Now they're not getting blown out like a lot of other teams have in their losses this year. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they are still the only winless team in TGL this year.
Yeah.
So they're out. Jupiter Lynx is already out. So the playoff seeds are set. We got LA versus New York, and we got Bay versus Atlanta.
Anything to be said about the 2 founders of this league? Their teams are out and everybody else is in.
I think it'll be.
That's just it. It was just too much bandwidth spent on the front office stuff. Securing these stars. You know what it was? I think Tiger's cursed when he came out to Eye of the Tiger day one. I've totally done a 180 on that. I bought it.
Now you're with me.
Yeah, I was caught up in the moment. I'll admit that. I'm not too big of a guy to admit when I'm wrong. I'm also not too big of a guy to steal. And if I ever go back to, I will, the Players Championship TBC Sawgrass, I swiped this from the bar when I was there last time. So
that's
this
nice.
Is my show. This is my show glass. It's probably about 15 years old.
I will say, so we're going to learn a lot during these playoffs, because some of the early criticism when people were comparing the viewership numbers were comparing the nights that either Rory and Tiger played to the nights that neither one of them played in. Was the star power enough amongst the other teams to carry the Tiger and Rory-less nights? And now we have no choice. The playoffs are going to be Tiger and Rory-less, so we're going to really get to see how popular this has come. Because I do think, and I'm not worried, because I do think it's come a long way enough to where and maybe at first people tuned in more to see Tiger and Rory, of course, because they were the names that they got it going. I think we're past that now. I think people are now tuned into what Tom Kim is and JT, the way he is out there, and I think that they're seeing these guys, or at least a lot of casual golf fans are seeing these guys in a different light, and they're buying into their quote unquote characters. And I think it's going to be fine. I think the viewership should be up there and should be pretty impressive for these playoff matches, and hopefully exciting, because I think we've now found the strategy. Although, was it Atlanta Drive apparently is not very confident with their hammer strategy without JT, because JT's not there tonight. Did you see they FaceTime JT to try to get some advice on when to throw the hammer? So that was we got that.
What are we, phoning a friend here? Speaking of characters,
it was funny.
I know. Okay, so at the end of the day, going back to the mantra, the DP mantra, it's entertainment. This is a television program that we're talking about here. Jesus, the wind just blew really hard. Screen door flew open. I thought death was knocking early.
Oh, jeez.
Billy Horschel, speaking of characters, getting a little lippy with Jack's place. Jack firing back. Do you care if I introduce this story?
Go for it.
Because they weren't as tuned into the backroom banter on the setup of the bear trap. And all right, so here's the story. Last week we'll talk about we'll give our opinions on the eventual winner. What is it? Joe? Was it Joe the
Joe
Plumber?
Highsmith?
Yeah.
Joe the
So,
or it was almost Jacob Bridgman. So I mean.
PGA National down there in South Florida, it was the Honda Forever, and now it's the Cognizant Classic. And traditionally, it's a tough setup. And this past year, they did some overseeding, they did some aggro stuff that made it, in Billy Horschel's opinion, a little too soft. He's like, I get it, it's greener for the cameras, but now it's like this resort course. We see Jake Knapp out there shooting 59. There should never be a 59 here at PGA National, yada, yada, yada. Like, what are we doing here? Get off my lawn, which, you're kind of poking the bear at the bear's den, literally and figuratively speaking. It's not technically his tournament. He hosts the Memorial, but everything from this tournament has gone to the Barbara and Jack Nicklaus, Youth Children's Hospital down there for eternity. And Billy Ho's up in arms because he goes out and shoots 500 and gets blown out of the water, because traditionally you shoot 500 PGA National, you're going to move around on the leaderboard. And, he did. So Billy kind of chirps. And what I loved was Jack's response, and the quote that I pulled from it, because essentially Jack came out and he said, I disagree. Sometimes courses are gettable. And I think he said something like, it was a benign day. Yes, when there's no wind and this, that, and the other, and it's gettable. He says, if a golf course won't yield to good golf, then I don't think it's a very good golf course. And I thought that was a good kind of like, know your role and shut your hole. Because if you go back to 2003, the tournament record's 24 under at that place.
So it's not like it hasn't happened before. I mean,
in the last few years, it's been a ton. And Jack also prefaced that with, the technology is growing. Like we're seeing this everywhere. Scores are just kind of incrementally getting lower. But I love what he said. Like, if a golf course won't yield to good golf, then it's not even fun. At that point, it's penal. It would be like you and I going out to Kiawah playing the Ocean Course from the tips at 8,100. What are we even doing? It's not even, they're 280 carries just to get to the fairway, and we're not doing it. So I thought that was pretty cool for Jack to kind of just admit, man, this is a game of ebbing and flowing, because he's been Mr. like, well, maybe we do need to roll the golf ball back, and maybe we do need to protect all this. He also is pretty sharp with, kind of putting it to bed. And I hate to admit that I think he's right. Tiger's never catching Jack.
No, it's not. Actually, if you really watch closely, Tiger's kind of limping around even at the TGL tonight. I noticed it right off his first tee shot. So, but another point on the whole PGA National, specifically that course, because you mentioned,
Cooper, come on.
Obviously, like you said, the overseeding and it's softened up and whatnot. I wouldn't put it past for part of that to be. So I don't know if you've realized, but PGA National has become Jupiter's kind of YouTube hub. Like, that's where Bob does sports. That's kind of become their home course. Grant Horvat, that's like, he plays there a ton. A lot of the YouTube golfers down in Florida play PGA National and the connecting courses there. And it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying this was the driving factor, but I think PGA National is perfectly fine with that situation, because they're getting these guys coming in all the time, getting millions of views playing and playing better golf because their course has been friendly to them. It's not the main driving factor, but I don't think they're they're minding, because on the daily basis, on the weekly basis, outside of this 1 week a year, this course is getting a ton of views at this point, a ton of eyes through the media, through YouTube, through all the social media. And it is working for them. I mean, hell, Bob does sports, both Bob Fairways and what's his name, Joey. They both have hole-in-ones at this course. I think maybe even the same hole, but still.
Grown men talking about Bobby Fairways and Joey Coldcuts. What a
I know, right?
country.
But I wouldn't put it past that being part of the equation, that like, we don't want to make this too hard, because now these guys won't be able to. They're not that they won't be able to, but they might choose to play somewhere else where their game's able to look a little better on camera.
Well, I think that's always been the case, because it is a resort course. It's part of a public resort that's, with four or five accessible golf courses. And your point's valid. They're not trying to make it penal. I think Billy's upset about the grass change, and that you can't make it as penal. You can't make it as penal as quick as you can in other places by just growing it out a little bit, because it needs to be set up for the YouTubers and the resort people more consistently. And if you look back real quick, and then we're going to put this to bed, because this is about as much as I got in the tank for the Cognizant Classic and Billy Horschel being upset. I really think what that is Billy leaning into his TGL role. I think he wants to be a little bit of the bad boy. And I'm like, dude, saddlebacks and slick back hair ain't going to cut it. Like, unless you're playing Al Capone or a 20s gangster, that's not the look we're going for Billy Badass. Like, you really would have a better chance of being Billy Biceps and trying to play like a pretty boy, like bring back pretty boy image and that kind of shit. Because trying to be, tough and curmudgeon-y, it just doesn't jive with the public, because I am a man of the people. We all know this. So
Yes.
19 under Joe Highsmith, the Joey Colcuts, Joe Shit, the Ragman, Joey Plumber. I love Joe Highsmith. I love that story going from like Monday, not Monday qualifier, but basically like, what am I doing here? Barely making a cut. Let me catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, this is the PGA story. And again, you see the reaction, where, everything just kind of checks in. He's like, I don't want to get in front of myself, but don't I get a Masters invite? Like, all these things are, signature events, 2 years on the tour, $1.7 million, financial security, job security, all these doors open up now. And then you kind of go over, and I just got the Live Golf communication email saying, here's the Hong Kong update. And I just don't care, because there's not a lot more tied to those events. I guess, we'll get into it later in the year when the US Open's coming around the corner, that they do get that automatic exemption, and there will be some PGA invites and there will be some Masters invites, but it can just as quickly disappear. And when Jack was out there, and Freddie this week, because we're going to talk about Liv and Brooksy, but when they're out there protecting their tour, and then you see a guy like Joe Highsmith, Joey Plumber, get his bag and punch his ticket, that is what makes this tour so special and what makes the entertainment value rise. And so we're getting used to that. Okay, the Cognizant might not be the Honda of old, the PGA National of old, the real kind of test leading into the Masters. Right. Now it really is going to be that John Deere level, you can punch tickets to elsewhere by winning here. You didn't dream about this maybe being your biggest or your first, but here you are. And if you do it here, you can then do it elsewhere, because right after the Monday, Jesus, titty fucking Christ. What is going on up there?
She being exercised?
Oh my God.
Is there a demon coming out?
I don't know. But the Monday after the PGA National visit, and looking back at the scores real quick, Joey at 19, Austin Eckroat last year, another great story coming out of PGA National at 17 under, Chris Kirk 14 under, another phenomenal story. Remember Chris with his demons that coming out of that. Sepp Straka 10 under, then 12. So it's been a while since it's been that like overwhelmingly challenging course that Billy Horschel was alluding to.
Yes.
So Billy, calm down. And we can get back to what really matters, which is the day after PGA National down there. Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I just
you lost me a second there? Yeah, the day after.
So the day after the PGA National, the Honda, the Cognizant, we're calling it whatever we want to call it, is the Seminole Pro member, and that's why
you mentioned this last year.
Wow,
okay,
this has been going on about, the last 30 years now. 20 years, about 20 years now. And it's been going on for longer than that, but for about the past 20 years. And Jimmy Dunn is the I think the chairman of Seminole. Jimmy Dunn's that name that got the whole thing going. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but Jimmy Dunn, they host the Seminole Pro member. And there are like Rory McIlroy's dad is a member at Seminole. And so Rory's always there, either playing with his dad or somebody else, because Tom Brady's a member there. So he picks up, whatever PGA Pro. And Brad Faxon was on the PGA Tour's Golf Channel podcast this week talking about, and it was Monday's episode, and it was in the morning, and he's like, I tee off at like 1 o'clock this afternoon. And the point that they were making is the one that I was kind of alluding to, where this event for the game writ large, for like the PGA Tour stronghold, trying to do this Monday through Sunday grip on the game, this Seminole Pro member is almost more important overall. And it does kind of drown out the importance of that Honda. And he goes, it's a little disappointing to him that so many big name pros who do make their home down there, that used to be the attraction of that tournament, come stay at home and play here.
Yeah,
instead they're opting for the Seminole Pro-Am on Monday, which is still big enough for the game, because they leak out the tee sheet. And Brad Faxon was saying one of the cool things about this is when he goes off at 1 o'clock, he's like either 1 o'clock or 1 or 10. He's gonna be looking at 9 or 18, and there's gonna be Tom Brady walking off, or like I said, Rory McIlroy.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. And I honestly would not be surprised if one of these years they do televise it. Remember, Seminole was on display during COVID. They had one of the first kind of celebrity matches out there with DJ and some of the TaylorMade boys. So the Seminole Pro member, a tradition unlike any other, was again something that happened last week. But leading into the next stop on the PGA Tour, which is Arnie's place.
And yeah, this is like we said, this is one of the first big weeks. Scotty Scheffler, obviously the defending champ, he kind of his crazy early season run. This was one of the big stops for it. Bay Hill, obviously the picturesque spot. It's still, one of the big mainstays that people look forward to seeing from a visual standpoint. Signature events, we got the extra, I think it's a $20 million purse. So yeah, this is a good kickoff here, and a real fast bat. Just one last point on the cognizant. Jordan, it was good to see Jordan. It was good to see Jordan Spieth in the top 10, starting to catch fire right before a little short Texas push as well, which we know he always does well in Texas. So that leading into the Masters as well, where he's also done good in the past, obviously a past winner. It might be exciting to keep an eye on Spieth. This might be exciting to see him find a little form here right at the perfect time for him. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Are you hanging out? Are we sharing a document here? Or do we have show notes? Because my next note was about Jordan Spieth because he's a little salty right now. I don't know if you saw this. He's a little salty that he's not.
I didn't see him be salty, but I'm just seeing him playing good right now.
Two things can be true at the same time. Two very familiar names missing from Arnie's place this week, Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler. And earlier today, somebody smarter than me juxtaposed their two answers to a question, how does it feel not being there this week? They both would have had to rely on a sponsor's exemption because they're both kind of still on their way back onto the inside of getting automatically qualified for these things, which is kind of funny. I think this is just proof that
Gotta get that ginger ale in you.
It's freaking delicious, man.
I get it though.
A while ago, they with the Kool-Aid, like it's just so good.
They came out with that lemonade ginger ale mix like years ago, and I tried it, and it was one of the more refreshing soda drinks I've ever had. It was fantastic.
Growing up, that was the highlight of going to Grandpa Bob's house in Dearborn, Michigan. Was Verner's. He would always have a big. Now, when I was an adult, I tried Verner's. Almost threw up. It's fucking delicious. It's disgusting. It's kind of like being in Maine. Mainers are like, oh, you got to have some Moxie. Oh God, it's licorice mixed with horse piss. So it says Jordan Spieth's a little salty right now because they asked both of them, and Ricky kind of said, I was blessed to get the one, for Tiger's Place at Torrey. I was really fortunate, to get that's Pebble and AT&T threw me out of bone. And he's like, I guess I got to play a little bit better if I want to make sure that I don't have to rely on these things. And so, we're going to gear up and yada, yada, yada. Here's the thing though. Ricky, I think, is still, he had that kind of brush at the US Open where we all thought it was going to happen. You thought it, I thought it. And then Wyndham Clark comes in and it kind of introduced himself to the world and just pushed Ricky back a couple steps. Cause I think we all thought that was the beginning of the comeback, and maybe it was, and maybe we'll look back and it is, but he was just kind of graciously saying, it's going to suck not being there. I wouldn't be shocked if they're still there in some capacity, just out of support and respect for, Mr. Palmer in the game.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jordan took a slightly different approach. And I don't want this to come across as I'm trying to be like, oh, did you hear what this guy, Jordan Spieth, in no way, shape, or form.
Will be whatever.
He will never be a villain in this game at all. But what I did notice was he was kind of saying like it hurt, it stinks. He tried really hard. He's playing really well. And then his final, we're going to, just do what we can to kind of get better and blah, 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 blah. And his departing comment was, I guess I should have played better injured golf last year. And I thought to myself,
yeah, I don't love that comment. I hadn't heard that, but I don't love that either because that's almost like, oh, pity me.
And so I do want to kind of say this is an artificial dig because I'm not actually taking a dig at Jordan Spieth.
Sure.
That's a fair comment. If I was in his shoes too, I'd be like, because there's kind of like a, you know who I am? Like this is again,
but it's part of the game too. When's the last time you've really dominated enough to where you're the name that people want there?
Well, let's see real quick. Who are the sponsor exemptions this week?
That's a good question.
Jamie, can you look up who are the? See, if you look up sponsors exemptions for this, all you see is Ricky and Jordan didn't get one. You have to actually
it's Rafael Campos, Mackenzie Hughes, Minwoo Lee, and Justin Rose.
Say those again.
So Rafael Campos, Mackenzie Hughes, Minwoo Lee, and Justin Rose. Minwoo Lee and Justin Rose, I have no issue with getting an exemption. Like that's perfectly
Mackenzie Hughes, I don't either. I think was it Mac Hughes who was screwed? Not Mackenzie Hughes President's Cup. Did he get screwed out of the President's Cup last year? Was he the Canadian that was left?
Oh. No, that was Nick Taylor was left off.
Yeah. Okay, no, but Mac Hughes, I have no problem with that. But I don't think. I mean, I would love to always see Ricky and Jordan in the field.
Sure.
It is what it is. Bigger news. Oh my God, the intern didn't die. Would you get over here? Why are you screaming so much? What is going on? Why are you done being a crazy monster? All right, come here. Say hello to the people with your bluey PJs on.
Hello there.
Get out of here.
You know what? She was just so excited and into the show watching it upstairs that she couldn't wait to tell everyone how much she appreciated your takes.
That bare bottom. Jokes. The bigger news before we I was gonna say head into a little break and hear from, but we're gonna hear from us
right
here in a minute.
Because copyright's a bitch.
It's just because copyright sucks and nobody pays us to use their shit yet. Thanks for slamming that door, child. We are trying to sell this house pretty soon. Let's not break things. Speaking of commercials, fewer commercials at the Arnold Palmer this week. Did you hear about this story?
So fewer commercials and more data. The more data-driven commentary and graphics as far as what's on the screen, and more like mic'd up interactions between caddy and player.
That's what really caught my eye.
So those, if you're asking me, that's a direct result of TGL. That's what that is. It's obvious that's what that is. But once again, we talked about this last week with the PGA making changes on the fly right now. It's just a good sign that they're willing to try something. And maybe this doesn't get people to stop complaining about the broadcast, but it should, because three of these, it's not going to. No, but
that's a true.
Three of these things are things that people have been complaining about that they want, and now they're going to get them. Let's see what the reaction is from the masses.
If the Masters is a tradition unlike any other, golf fans bitching about the coverage. I mean, when Brandel kicks it, we're going to turn on Kiz real quick. You know what I mean? Like, when no offense, no disrespect. He's a fellow dog. He's doing great things for the TGL. And like you said, pointing out that personality sells. And at the end of the day, we're talking about a television program. We're talking about a product of entertainment. But no, we will always reserve the right to piss and moan and bitch about Johnny Miller being a dickhead, or Paul Azinger being too soft, or Gary McCord being too fast and loose. Gary McCord, you know who I'm talking about, the mustachioed guy. Gary McCord got banned from covering the Masters with CBS. Have you heard this story?
I did not know that. No.
I think it's Gary. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So Gary McCord got banned one year because he referred to, somebody asked him about how fast the greens were playing out there on the course at Augusta National, and he said they must use something like bikini wax on them, like they're that slick.
And that's what he got banned for.
It's Augusta National, man. I mean, it's like Adam Scott. Okay, so Adam Scott, he's front and center. We're talking about these player interactions, and yes, that was my last note on the Arnie Palmer, was that these fewer commercial breaks, but they're still going to take the breaks, but instead they're going to cut to caddies and players being mic'd up, and those little interactions are going to be brought to you by MasterCard. So MasterCard probably had to throw them a couple more bones to say, we'll take that airtime, or the PGA or the PGA Tour said, how about this? We got to sweeten our value prop. We got to give you an extra bone. So this is what we're willing to do for you. We're willing to kind of eat that perceived money that we would have been getting from that ad buy and give it to you as part of this package, which I'd be kind of interested to find out which, anytime that minutes aren't going, to this advertiser, they're going to go to that advertiser, or they're going to go to the people. And so when you're trying to split the baby there, I'd be curious to know how that worked out. But those are going to be fun interactions to watch.
So speaking of the ads, though, so they're obviously getting creative as far as how to change the broadcast, but still work in ads to be able to sell, because obviously that's how TV works. Do you see them doing something in the future, or at least giving it a try, similar to how, I don't know when the last time you've watched an NHL game is on TV, but how have you noticed when they now put in the superimposed graphics, like advertisements along the walls that is just seen on TV? So the nice, clean and rotating advertisements that are just for TV. Like in the building, it's still just the painted walls, all the stagnant advertisements, but now on TV, there are all these animated graphics and stuff like that along the walls.
You're even talking about like NFL games now. They have the floating, like this floating scoreboard looking windows and graphics.
Like, could you see them do like
No.
when they do a flyover of a hole before the hole starts or something, like just quickly like superimposing a logo in the fairway or in the water or on the green? You know what I mean? For like that 10-second run.
Okay, now the way
Like
that
this
you just
whole
presented it,
preview
yes.
brought to you
The way
by
that
MasterCard. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, and then the
To where
logo
it's
is
not the
just
screen, it's
smack dab in the center of like the tee box, and then they
correct,
go out.
yeah.
And yes,
Like, and not to where you can't see the tee box, but it's just kind of they blend it in to be kind of part of it. You know what I mean?
well, at first I didn't know where you were going with that because during gameplay, so to speak, to use a hockey term or to use a NFL term or whatever, during gameplay, it's not, I think not unique
Whatever,
to any
sure.
league. Uh, Part of the product of golf, and I'm shocked that even the shot tracer hasn't really, pissed us off about this, because part of the product of the golf is the beauty, is the landscape, it's the
Sure.
shots. And so if you start having holograms, or even like, signs of
Yeah.
it's reminiscent of, if you ever watch the DP World Tour, some of those events, or most, if not all of the LPGA Tour events, in the rough, way off to the side, in like odd distances from 75,
Yeah,
85
they got like
yards from the
little
green.
A-frame, long A-frame things, whatever.
Yeah, they've got literally signs set up,
Yeah.
advertising billboards. And I think that's just got to, they got to do what they got to do. It's, it's much more,
Right.
NASCAR looking setup than, maybe one, like the NBA, where one team has one logo for one sponsor. But what you just said, for sure, the way that we're getting much more data-driven integration and AI and drones and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, we will see probably some of that. I can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And shot tracer, I think we've come so like just used to seeing shot tracer, and it's such a small line and for so quick that like I don't even think people even notice the damn shot tracer anymore. I notice when it's not there. I can tell you that much. Does that make sense? If a shot for some reason doesn't get picked up on the tracer and it's not on a shot on TV, I'm like, oh, I wonder where the hell the shot tracer is.
It's painful to watch old golf coverage now, because we've gotten so
Right.
used. It's like trying to watch old NFL films without the yellow line. If you're like trying to watch an old game, you need to see. So we're going to need to see those drone flyovers where the the first tee, brought to you by Acorn Hills. Acorn Hills crafts premium golf and outdoor apparel built for performance on the course, on the trail, anywhere adventure takes you. And when you buy Acorn Hills, you're not only going to look good and feel good, you're going to be doing good too, because Acorn Hills partners with the National Forest Foundation and donates a percentage of their total sales to support planting trees. Air is good. We need trees, unless you're on the golf course, and then trees are a pain in the ass. So for every $1 from Acorn Hills donates, the National Forest Foundation will plant at least one seedling. Head on over to acornhillsco.com, TBFY15 for 15% off. Mother's Day is around the corner. Father's Day is around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Golf season is almost here. Tell Nate that we sent you.
I love that. And they obviously, Nate knows that I play in this game because being partnered with the Forest Association, like they have to do something for all the trees I've hit. I've damaged a lot of trees.
Oh, what do they say? Like trees are 90% oxygen?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, there's whatever. We're not going to get. I don't want to get scientific on the trees.
No, I'm just sad. The Eisenhower tree at Augusta. Augusta's around the corner. What I think I posted is golf season is almost here. And God, Nick Dunlap is a killer.
Now, how are you bring up Augusta right around the corner and the trees? Like, so obviously it got some damage. Got some damage in the last hurricane that went through down there. Are you expecting it to look drastically different anywhere?
Yeah, I think they. I mean, when they keep their cards so close to the chest that when they came out and said that we received significant damage, and when they even used phraseology like that, I mean, I say yeah, but it's also Augusta National. And I mean, could they honestly transport fully grown trees and kind of make it look? I think they might be able to, because if you notice, every single day when you tune it on the next morning, those fairways are green. You don't notice any grass because they go out and they replace all the divots. They do all the work. Like, it is Augusta National, so maybe potentially we'll see something like that. But before we even get to Augusta, the reason I say that golf season is almost here, because for me personally, because of where I come from, great old country song. Cornbread and chicken.
It is.
The Players next week. This to me is the genuine. And now for the longest time, it was in May, and that's back when the PGA was in August at the end of the summer and all that kind of stuff. And moving it back to its traditional date in March, to me, is the course plays a little bit different. We've seen that. We've seen some of these cold, windy days that got 17 to get the reputation, or it earned its reputation through these days. And Scotty Scheffler being the first player ever in the history of the sport to go back to back there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super, super excited for the Players Championship next week. I might be joining my boy Jeff on one of his 2-man scrambles to talk about Ponte Vedra, some of the stories, show him some of the paraphernalia and gear. I got pictures of Ray Floyd and Jack Nicklaus and some of those guys. We'll run it back on memory lane next week here as well, and we'll preview the course and we'll preview the tournament and some of the allure to it. And so that's what I say, like, we're almost there. And no disrespect to these tournaments. Pebble Beach is obviously legendary. Arnie in this tournament, what it means to the game,
Right.
anything like that. I'm just saying for me, and we're there also because big news in Boudreaux's world. Are you ready for this? Like, we have like big breaking news.
Ready for it.
Well, two things. First of all, the quest for the qualifier continues. I registered for the Massachusetts Open this morning on May 5th. Mark your calendars. I'll be back at Kernwood Country Club, where I have twice gone out there. The first one, infamously 41 putts.
That's right.
41 putts that also involved a 10 on number 10, and only to be outdone the following year. Did not have 41 putts. I think I had like 31 putts, but I had another 10 on number 10. And I mean, we're talking about a short par 5 that I have no business hitting anything above a 5-iron off the tee. And for some reason, I pulled a 3 hybrid, rope hooked it into the OB. But it's just a shit show. So May 5th, mark your calendars. But I got my box from Scotty Cameron today. It came in like about 5 minutes before the show started. I wanted to pass the talking stick while I opened this up.
You want to do a live unboxing?
I wanted to see what this looks like. I did not order a head cover. I just got it repainted with the whatever the colors I sent it. So it was this it's a Sky 1997 Newport Classic. So it's basically like the OG Scotty Cameron, the new ones that are called like the Select Newport. This is the same shape, head design, all that kind of stuff. It originally had the black blue gun finish. I got it redone in silver the last time I sent it in. This time I just got it repainted with a sightline put on the top, and then I got it re-gripped. No head cover or anything like that. But this is a golf show, and I thought this would be a good time for a little unboxing, and then let you kind of share some of the thoughts that that I've just been walking all over, and then we can get back to my talking points here, because it has been a big week in the world of golf, both on and off the course.
Yeah, because everyone's starting to feel the shift in the season, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the Scotty Cameron and finding out if you have an ETA on your new, I believe it was Ping golf set that you went out and got fitted for. So that came in already. Beautiful. Must be a good feeling.
Went to the sim last week. We're flying at about 10-15 yards longer. We're getting a little more roll.
Ooh.
It was worth it start to finish. I think I shot like one over at one place we played. I mean, this is simulator golf, so there's like 8-foot gimmies and shit. But as far as ball striking was concerned, it was there. That driver was sick.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna go a little sideways here, because I know then we're putting it back on track with some Brooks Koepka talk, but somewhere around the I guess the area of that topic, when I first saw the news that we're going to talk about with Brooks Koepka in a little bit here, I actually misread the headline on my phone. It came in like partially, and I assumed what it was going to say, which took me off guard and made me start thinking, because I thought the headline said Brooks Koepka is going to want a PGA team in LIV, which I was like, whoa, that would be the most outrageous. So look at that box. It's just everything about it is nice. Which to my thought about that would have been why would anybody want to do that? Why would they want to join a PGA team over on LIV? Like, I don't see it doing that. But obviously that wasn't what the news was. But it also started making me think about where, one of the things that TGL got right with teams that LIV didn't get with teams, and we've talked about one of the things that LIV has missed on in the tournaments having no kind of gravitas yet, or history, or kind of allure to making history, is that there's also no natural like teams need rivalries, teams need something to buy into, and there's no natural rivalries or any passion with the teams that were created on LIV. What TGL did was they leaned into
we talked about it a lot.
Yeah,
Boston versus New York, Boston versus LA.
But even tonight they turned Jupiter and Atlanta Drive into Florida versus Georgia. Like they turned into
Florida, Georgia, or it's Miami, Atlanta. Because I mean, Jupiter is just a placeholder for South Florida. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So it's just another way that teams. It's not that team golf isn't what golfers want to do. Golfers love team golf. They want to sign up for team golf. They just don't want to play regular golf on teams because it just doesn't. It's boring, and that's
That
what
is
LIV is.
funny.
Unfortunately,
That's
it's
funny
just
the way you put it. Regular golf on teams. It's almost like
right.
at the men's league, just having, you have like scorecard scrambles or scorecard best ball. It's like a blind best ball where you and me we get put together, and then our cards get put together after the fact. It's like, I don't know. It's like you and Andrew shot 2 under.
Yeah, like
I don't know. I don't know what
enough.
Andrew is. Like it doesn't do anything to make my socks roll up and down.
So that's just another side point. And is the box open? Are you ready to showcase it? Because if not, I
want to pick back at this. I want to pick back at this Brooks Koepka thing because you mentioned it where maybe he was trying to get his own. Did you say his own TGL team?
No, I had misread the headline, and I thought for some reason they were saying that he was going to want PGA to have a team represented on LIV, which would have made no sense to me. But
and then we hear Freddie. Then we hear Freddie's comments, and it all makes sense. Like what's he doing?
And then I opened it up,
and what's he doing over at TGL? Well, I think he just wants to get back to the PGA Tour, and it's gonna be easier said than done. I do think, and that's what Freddie was saying. And he goes, you bring all of a sudden 7-8 stars back. He goes, there is going to be some effect. There's going to be some guys, Lucas Glover might be on the bubble, and maybe that's why he's bitching about all this. It's kind of one of those play better, situations, or enjoy your time on TGL. It's gonna be fine.
Well, especially with the smaller fields and the exemption changes, like all that's gonna play, like kind of taking shape at this exact same time that these guys are gonna be looking to come back.
Well, I think what happens too is if Brooks Koepka comes back, if Bryson comes back, and you got John Rahm over there and DJ over there, and probably Phil sticking around and Bubba sticking around.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're going to.
That's kind of how I see it falling. Yeah,
and with Jay Moynihan basically saying, "Listen, we've had talks. There's not a ton of progress yet. Like it's going to take some more time. We don't expect any announcements anytime soon." I think they are slow walking this thing because maybe they don't want to just let everybody have their cake and eat it too. Now that we have some signals from some of the stars saying maybe we're ready to wrap it up. Because I also saw Hudson Swafford give an interview where he said he spoke to the PGA Tour and talked to Jay and talked to those guys about coming back, and he also. He's like, from his understanding, there are, fines. There's a 1-year suspension, and they're, pretty tight-lipped about all that kind of stuff. But there is, I guess, a potential pathway. And no matter what, there's gonna be, like JT, it's like a couple of guys said, there's gonna be some people pissed off no matter what when these guys come back. But we need them back. We want them back, and they want to be back. Freddie talked about how Brooks wants to get back. They all want to get back to doing this exactly. It's going to be a domino effect. Brooks is going to come. Bryson's going to finally say, sure, YouTube and PGA, sorry, no more LIV. And then LIV is going to become basically the DP World Tour alternative. I think it would be because they already have that partnership where you can play in both and pay some fines or whatever the hell it might be. But yeah, we're gonna bring some of the big stars home. They're gonna get sliced of TGL. They're gonna get put on. Brooks is gonna be one of those free agents next year. He lives in Jupiter. Maybe he signs with Jupiter Links to be on their roster. However this thing develops. But Tiger and Rory played it right. Greg Norman, shockingly, who knows what happens to LIV. I definitely, I do see it sunsetting. I don't think it's going to be sustainable because the model was these guys were going to come and then a bunch of people were going to follow. And no, we're not seeing that. Potgieter, Aldrich Potgieter, Nick Dunlap, the PGA Tour U pipeline. We just wait until the world remembers who Gordon Sargent is.
Exactly.
This little skinny frat boy with the swoop hair who can hit
or
it.
Neil Shipley or something if he makes another appearance,
He's going to. And I think obviously Shipley after the work he did with Full Swing. That's some prime time. He is made for this game. And people
he totally is. His apartment tour, like old school crib style, that was fantastic.
The modern game too, where it is accessible. You are eating at Waffle House and tours, and none of us are good at this except for a very, 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 very small few select players.
Yeah, and I do find it fun.
That's good for radio, isn't it?
That is a good one. I do find it funny too with speaking of LIV and YouTube and whatnot, and how we saw Rick Shields sign this exclusive deal with LIV and all this about content and this jazz. But ever since that happened, I haven't honestly heard too much from Rick Shields. But what I'm seeing is Grant Horvat and Phil Mickelson now have like this partnership, and it's the two of them now. And I'm like, well, so what's the point of that deal? Because Phil Mickelson's arguably one of the obviously the loudest names and speakers as far as representing LIV, and he's out there doing his own thing with Grant Horvat, and it's catching wind, and it's doing good. And so, like, what was the point for Rick Shields to sign something exclusive other than just getting a bunch of money, which I get, honestly, but we're just not. Once again, Lyft doesn't seem to be pushing that at all.
I think Rick Shields is the next evolution of David Faraday. It says that Faraday's contract with Liv extends through the end of the 2025 season, and I think they sign Rick Shields as kind of this, instead of the traditional media route. No disrespect to Mr. Faraday, he's one of the funny guys in the world. When I was at the PGA last year, my brother-in-law went to his live show, like he does these live shows, and at the end he was doing a Q&A, and I guess he was saying how he's going to kind of stop doing the live shows because they don't draw as much as they used to for obvious reasons because of the exposure and everything. But he kind of made a wink, nod joke too. He was well compensated on the other end. Like, it was worth it.
Of course,
to go to Live and to be play-by-play, just have fun with it. But I think that Rick Shields is that next step, kind of, okay, if Mr. Faraday's going to wrap it up, we're not going to go get Paul Azinger or Brad Faxon or, somebody from the Tower. We're not even going to go after like Kiz or a former player. We want our Grant Horvath or our whether either somebody who is super good like Horvath, I was a good college player, +6 handicap, that kind of guy, and being pressed to maybe try to give it a go at some of these tournaments. But he's not that. Instead, he is kind of the knowledgeable guy with a good game. He goes out there and tries to go to his local PGA qualifiers and stuff like that, and he documents that well. He's a more accessible version of the internet golfer, of the YouTube golfer. So I think that's where they're trying to do that crossover, is where do we plug that hole of off-course, golf related content. And it was really good. The first thing that I saw, the clip that I saw with him and Brooksy, and I think this is where Brooks is sneakily becoming more. I think once Brooks saw that Bryson was embraced by everybody, he was like, well, maybe I can just kind of relax a little bit and people won't constantly think I'm an asshole, because he walks around with that. I'll say, man, stereotypes come from a place. In North Florida frat boy, we can smell our own. The bad stereotype of, I don't give a fuck if you like me or not, man. Bro, I got my own thing going. And bro, I'm not saying that's him to a T, but that was the exuding of like, haters gonna hate. It's like, yeah, but don't give them things to hate about. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to tee it up for them, pun intended. So when Brooksy starts embracing that and kind of being a little more chill and understanding that he's got a really, he's got a lovable wife. She's very pretty and she's likable or hateable. She's very cringe. If you're
I would say there was definitely
you're not into brat summer shit from South Florida.
Yeah, that first full swing season, I remember having some comments about her that I was like, it wasn't for me. But
I remember having some thoughts about her. She's a beautiful woman, and she's engaging. And now they're a family, and so I think that they're going to be welcomed back into the PGA Tour fold.
Definitely.
So we got it back out. There it is. There she is. Titleist.
See, I do love the traditional look, like that OG look. There's like, I don't like the big heads and
that's
stuff.
But I got added right there. I'm a visual golfer. I've learned that. The bottom. Then I just got the paint. Refilled because the paint had chipped a little bit. I got my initials on the toe, Scotty Cameron on the heel. That came with it, obviously. And then these grips are, I hate saying second to none, but they're second to none.
Whoa. I like that curve up at the top.
It's called a pistol handle. That's what you should look into. If that looks like it's
I haven't actually used one before.
Pistol grip. And I really fell in love with it with that pistol grip. Super stroke. You see, everybody has fucking super stroke grips. They've got a nice kind of leathery texture to them. But I like the rubbery texture of the very traditional ping. It's just a black rubber ping grip. It's what Tiger uses on his Scotty. Yes. Absolutely, full-throated. I want to be like Tiger Woods, and that's why I kind of designed my Scotty kind of after.
Who doesn't?
But when I noticed that, I've been playing with a Ping Golf Pride, that traditional rubber. They're like $9.99 on Amazon too. They're not $50 for whatever. For me, I like that tackiness. I like the soft. But then when you combine it with the pistol handle, it really makes for kind of an interesting kind of almost baseball bat, because how it gets fatter at the bottom, a wooden baseball bat. That's the feel that I get to it.
See, I'd be fine with that, but I don't like the super thick grips on my putter. I like to be able to feel like my hands are closer to the actual like shaft, like thickness and shaft of the putter. Like those, I've tried those big, really thick grips, and it feels like I have so much less control. But I know a lot of people like it because it makes them feel like they have more control. It's not for me.
You would make a reference to having your hands around the shaft. Speaking of pistol grips, wink, wink, nod, nod. Did you see the latest convict who qualified for the Open Championship?
No, I did not.
Well, actually, you know what? We should have a whole segment going on this week in golf convict news, because with the Masters around the corner, Miguel Angel Cabrera.
Okay, yeah,
that's right. He just got out of a, and I hate to laugh because I want to say Miguel Angel. What's his last name? Cabrera Golf. What was he in the clink for? I want to say he was in the clink for.
It was like
domestic violence.
Tax, I think, wasn't? Oh, was it domestic? I thought it was taxes.
Well, let's find out before we defame the young man.
Yeah.
Personal life. Where did he go to jail? Career. We're on the wiki. Controversy. January 21, arrested. Rio. Result of Interpol issuing red note, left Argentina without authorization. Start of a trial where he's facing a number of criminal charges, including assault, theft, and illegal intimidation.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't taxes.
No. It was not taxes, though.
but he just got out of the clink, and I saw on the social medias that I guess he's a former champion. He won the Masters. He's coming back. He's a turtle-looking guy. He's going to be at the Champion Center. What do you?
I remember what he won. Actually, I do remember.
I mean,
that.
we got me. Do you think Scotty Scheffler is like, thank God, like after what happened to him at the PGA, here comes. I'm not gonna be the weird one. I'm not gonna be the only guy just out, because Tiger's over there with his DUI. It's a star-studded event.
Yeah, I don't think you could get away with doing it to Tiger, but I think it would be funny if someone played a joke and like snuck up some pictures in that room they have the Champions Dinner in of.
Yeah, I would have the mug shot. I would have the mug shot.
I was going to say both Miguel and Scotty's mug shots up.
Yeah, right at your place setting. When you open up and you pull up the little napkin there.
Yeah.
No,
totally
all right. So I am going to be sharing this directly from golfmonthly.com. This to me is probably the biggest. Like, I think Joe Plummer was a great story. I'm going to follow up with Highsmith because I think that's a wonderful story. That is the quintessential kind of stock PGA Tour American.
Right.
We did it. He's going to win. He's going to. Who knows? Maybe we never hear from him again. If you look back at every human who's won a PGA Tour,
we don't have to, because his life has changed for at least probably 2 years now.
This, to me, is the story of the week in golf. So, former prisoner and Australian bike gang member. You read that. Former prisoner and Australian bike gang member Ryan Peake continued his own remarkable comeback story by winning the New Zealand Open on Sunday and clinching a place in the 153rd Open Championship at Royal Portrush next year, or later this year. Sorry. Peake, who was once part of an outlawed Australian biker gang, the Rebels, and sentenced to 5 years in jail for a serious assault during his early 20s, added another fascinating chapter to his redemption story after battling from 4 strokes back to win by 1 at Millbrook Resort in Queenstown, consequently sealing a maiden major start via the Open qualifying series. I mean, I always knew I would do it. It was just a matter of time when I was going to do it. From this morning when I woke up 4 shots behind to chase down a win. I've never been in a final group now, being a member of the Asian Tour. It's one hell of a story, one hell of a moment. Yeah, and they did try to ask him about it, and he was gracious, kind of deflecting, saying, I'm trying to focus on what's moving forward like this. And I love it.
Oh, yeah, you have to. I mean,
if you see a picture of this dude, Australian biker gang, he doesn't look like you or me. He's a big, bulky kind of guy with just tatted up arms and one hell of a short game. He's probably got some really, really soft hands that are
it's probably all he was able to practice while he was in prison. He might have, depending on what level of prison he was in, maybe he was able to practice a little bit, but
5 years for assault. This was not, this wasn't
a
Norwegian study group kind of prison.
Yeah.
Maybe he was on the Scotty Scheffler, train where you do your stretches in your cell before you go out and shoot 68 or 64, whatever the hell he did at Valhalla last year.
Yeah, I'm sure he could find something long enough to tuck in his arms and get those rotations in.
And I will say this: if that interested you, come back next week, because I think this week in golf crime is going to be a recurring theme.
I do like that. We're going to make some graphics for that.
You know how easy it is, and I'll tell you right now, folks, you too can do this at home. If you just Google the word golf and you click news, once you get past the first 3 pages of PGA Tour, Live, NCAA, you start getting like golf cart involved in, and it's all of these weird crimes, most of them in Florida. As a Floridian, I'm not proud, but it's there. And And it's pretty funny shit. Speaking of funny shit and golf carts, did you catch Mr. William Murray on Joe Rogan? I don't know if you're a Rogan guy or not.
Oh,
Nobody, you're a Rogan guy. Bill Murray is notorious for doing nothing. He's a ghost. He is an absolute apparition in pop culture. He shows up on the screen. He shows up at Pebble Beach for the pro-am. He, for the longest time, it was rumored, and not even rumored, he didn't have a phone number. He didn't have an email address.
Right.
He didn't have a cell phone. He had like a 1-800 number that you left a voicemail or a message, and he may or may not get back to you. That was like the legend back in the day. He said on this podcast. Now, of course, he's got kids, so he had to get a cell phone because that's the only way they'll talk to him is texting him back. And he said he does have an AOL address now because he had to for same reasons, kids and grandkids. But Bill Murray on the Joe Rogan podcast, did you catch it?
I know it was his first ever podcast appearance. I haven't actually seen the full interview. I've seen like some clips on TikTok, but I haven't just had the time to sit down and actually watch it. But I am curious because look, for however you feel about Joe Rogan and his opinions and whatever, like he has an entertaining show. Whether you go there for the craziness of it or whether you go there because you believe all of it or whatever, it makes for some good clips. It makes for all of the above.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's he's a curious guy, if nothing else, you know, and
I would give that to him.
Yeah, he's a curious guy. Everybody ebbs and flows. Well, really what I was kind of pointing out was golf is playing a dominant role in his podcast because like you, most of the time that I catch any Rogan related podcast, it's through TikTok. They do a good job.
Exactly.
We'll repost, you know, relevant clips, 3 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever it might be. And in the last couple of weeks, he had obviously Bill Murray on, and they got into golf because Bill Murray brought him the stuff. And Murray talked about how, Caddyshack was written by his brother, but it was kind of about their growing up as, not cart boys, caddies and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Great. We know those kind of legends and stories. But beyond even just the Bill Murray on Rogan, golf in general on the Joe Rogan podcast the last few weeks, he had Magnus Carlsen on.
Oh, yes, the chess player.
The chess player. Oh, the chess player. Probably the greatest chess player of all time. He would try to defer.
Also love watching his TikToks.
I love him. He would probably defer to maybe, what's his, Boris Spassky or Gary Kasparov or even Bobby Fischer is, the greatest.
Right.
But he would admit too that he's been ranked higher than anybody. I don't know how chess really works. But he was talking about how he's into golf. And how like he's obsessed with golf.
Oh, that surprises me.
And that's where he goes to kind of relax and do his thing. And when I don't know if you know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. He was the comedian who accidentally stepped into politics and made the Puerto Rico joke and then went back to his Kill Tony special in Austin, Texas, which he was like, fuck, man, I'm staying over here where we do comedy. That was too much. He's into golf as well, and he's a friend of Rogan's. So there they are talking about golf, and Rogan's finally like, what is it about golf? Because his producer, Jamie, the joke I make all the time, Jamie, pull that up. That's Joe Rogan. He has his producer, Jamie. Jamie is huge into golf. And I'm bringing all this up because we got TGL, we got Joe Rogan, we got chess players, we got Serena Williams buying the LA, buying a piece of LA. We got the NFL just sitting in there. No, we live in the NFL's world. We all know that. We live in the NFL's world. And whenever they don't want to have our attention, they allow other things to do. But Major League Baseball isn't doing anything this engaging. The NBA is not doing anything this engaging.
Nope.
The NHL is on to something with their Four Nations gig, and I think that's even kind of like a wink, wink, nod, nod. Is this where?
Yeah, but unfortunately, the way, and we don't need to get down this, but unfortunately, the way that the David Pastrnak injury was handled back in communication from the national team back to the club team, kind of left, unfortunately, that whole thing with a sour taste. And
without the Russians in there, you almost have to have a big asterisk. I think as Americans, we just wanted the fight. We just wanted the fist fight with the Canadians, and we got it.
Right.
And that's why we think it's the greatest thing in the world. But you're right, for the sport, not so good. Everything is looking up for golf, and I mentioned this because we're going to get into the season of the trolls and the clickbaiters. All they want to do is drag us down and be like, oh, he said this or this was just. Golf is such a big sport, and it's getting bigger, but more accessible all at the same time.
Yep.
And so in the coming weeks, especially next week, if you tune in, it is going to probably be a pretty kind of I would say tournament heavy centric. You know,
Yeah.
we're getting into, we'll talk about a little bit of Pontevedra. We'll talk about the history of the tour
Yeah.
a little bit. It's
We'll
built
talk
around
about some
tournament.
specific players we think about. We'll get back to some of that next week.
We'll get to some nuts and bolts next week. But in the meantime, yeah, go check out Bill Murray on Rogan's podcast. Even if you're not a Rogan guy, I would say in 2 hours and 20 minutes, it's probably about an hour and 45 or an hour and 40 of Bill, because Joe does a good job of that when he wants to, is just letting them go. And it's kind of classic Bill Murray, and he does some beautiful talking about the game of golf. And if you're struggling with your game, he does go about 20-30 minutes on a book that he read. He gives out the author of the book, everything, and about compartmentalization. So it's not just nuts and bolts, or it's not just about shits and giggles and jokes. It actually was mostly about golf and kind of mentality and kind of using golf, because Rogan used his archery obsession as a parallel every time that Bill Murray would say, like, yeah, well, and he makes a good point about it. He's like, it's an individual sport. It's very focused. It's all these things. And you're like, holy shit. He's like, maybe I should look at some of these golf, books, and maybe they would help me in my space. So golf is 2025, year of golf. You heard it here first, folks.
100%. And it's kind of funny to think that we've gone 50, 60 so odd years of golf not really changing to all of a sudden golf leading all of sports and engagement and changes. So that's pretty
except
cool.
For the NFL. Except for the NFL.
Except for the NFL, yeah.
All hail.
That's an unreachable bar.
Don't come after us.
And if you missed the TGL tonight, we also got maybe the best moment of the year. In a bunker before Tiger Woods explaining to Tom Kim how he hits his bunker shot in certain situations, and Tom Kim looking at Tiger and just said, "You're a weird guy, man." After Tiger gives him bunker advice, nice. That's just beautiful. That custom Scotty Cameron. But look, that's going to do it for us on this Tuesday, but not every Tuesday, because every Tuesday we are here. 8 o'clock on That Sports Podcast Network to bring you divots and pivots and all the latest golf news. And yes, we got the Players coming up, followed up by a nice Texas run and the Masters shortly after that. So you're definitely going to want to start reaching out with us and hanging out every Tuesday night. We love you. Stay classy. And yeah.